this video, I'm going to show you the different access levels you can assign to a user inside a Cisco switch. This example is for single switches. Now you have one or two switches and you're the network admin and you have someone helping you as a tech or a lead tech. You don't want everybody to have access to all the commands inside the switch. If you want to limit the type of access each person has per layer, you can assign different roles inside the switch. So in this case, I am going to create a tech support user, a lead tech user, and I'm going to be the network admin, which will give me permissions to do everything. Let's start by logging into the switch. Go into enable mode, enter the password, and right now this is how anybody can enter into the switch. As long as you know the password for the enable mode, you can change everything in the switch configuration, ports, delete stuff, add stuff, and that's one thing you don't want. So you want to limit the access to each person. And like I said, let's say for example you have, let me bring this up. You have a tech support person, you have a lead person, and you are the network admin. But you want to grant different accesses to each people. So let's say for example tech support is for basic diagnostic, and you just want this person to run show commands to find just basic information. Your lead tech can do port changes, VLAN changes, and a few more advanced command lines. And then you as network admin, you have full access to all commands on the switch. And again, if you work at a big company, you probably have a AAA server with TACAX. But this is just for example, if you have a small company and you have one switch and you managed everything. So let's go ahead and start configuring this. To create the network admin user, all you gotta do is you get into config mode in the switch. Once in config mode, you use this command line, username, the name of the user you want to create, privilege, this is the level of access you want to give this user in the switch. I'm going to give myself access of 15, secret, and then the password you want to set for this user. Once you have the command line, you hit enter, and you're going to see a message saying that the user JLeo with privilege 15 has been created. Okay, now that we have the network admin user created, we have to configure how the user is going to enable the terminal to be able to make changes. So in order to do that, all we're going to do is use this command line, enable, to allow this user to get into enable mode, secret, and a password. The password to enable the terminal is going to be different, or should be different than the password you set up for the user. Enter, and that's it. Alright, so now the user exists, and it has the two passwords needed to be able to log into the switch and to get into enable mode. If the user tries to log in right now into the switch with this information, it will not be prompted to enter the username. For example, if I try to log into the switch, it's going to ask me for the default password, which is neither one of the ones that I have set up, because it's not asking for any user, specific user, just asking for the global password. The global password set up when this switch was first configured was Cisco. So that will take us to the next level. At this point, if you want to get into enable mode, it's going to ask you for the password. In this case, it's going to be the enable password, which is something. And now you are in exec mode, but as you can see, it never asked for the user. So I'm going to exit out of this. And I'm going to configure it in the switch where whenever the user wants to log in, it's going to ask for username and password. So in global config mode, I specify line VTY0 space 4, and that is the entry point to the switch for the user. And then login local, and then transport input. In this case, I'm using telnet. So as I click enter at the end of that third command line, the configuration in the switch is done where the user NetAdmin is going to have to enter the credentials, username and password before this person can log into the switch. So I'm going to go back to my telnet session on my command prompt, and I'm going to try to telnet. And as you can see now, it's asking for the username. I'm going to type in JLeo and the password that I set up to the enable mode for this user, which it was no password. And now I am logged into the switch as NetAdmin, and I got into exec mode directly. Now let's go ahead and configure the switch with a new user, and the new user is going to be tech support. To create a tech support user, I'm going to stay in config mode, and I'm going to use a command line similar to the one I used to create the network admin, and it starts the same username, and in this case it's going to be tech support, the name of the user. I'm going to add this command line view because this user will have view access to the switch, and I'm going to specify which user this is, which is tech support, and I'm going to create the password for this user, and it will be SuperTech. This is going to create a user in the switch. As you can see here, tech support has been configured. You're going to have to specify which command lines this user is going to be able to run. So in order to do that, you're going to have to parse the view for this user. So I'm going to go ahead and run these two command lines. And the first one is parser view and the username, in this case tech support. The secret password is the same password that you use when you created the user. And now that you have entered into the parser view for this user, you can put in the command lines you want this user to run. This will give you granular control of what each person can do. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the command lines of the permissions I want to give this user. So I want to give it permissions to show run interface status, show VLAN, and to look at the inside of the configuration by issuing the command show running config interface. And if you notice, I am also specifying the interfaces this user can access when it issues those commands. And I am also going to give access to this user to see the MAC address table for each one of the interfaces in the switch. And with that, I have given this user access to the switch and to be able to only run specific command lines. Since I have already configured the VTY entry point, I don't have to do it again. So at this point, the user is ready to log into the switch for the first time. So I'm going to go back to my telnet session. I'm going to exit out of this session, and I'm going to log back in as the tech support user. So the user is tech support. The password is going to be the one that I created. In this case, is SuperTech, and I am into the switch. Now let's see if those command lines work. I'm going to show interface status, and yes, I can see the switch. Now if I try to get into config mode, which is one of the command lines that I did not specify here, this should fail, and yeah, it failed. Now let's see, I can see the interfaces. Can I see the VLANs configured in the switch? Well, let's run show VLAN brief. Yes, I can see the interfaces. Now, can I see the running configuration on each interface? Let's find out. I'm going to type in show run interface, and I'm going to select the first port in the switch. Yes, I can see that there is no configuration, but I can see inside the interface. So far all these command lines have worked. Show MAC address table. Since there's nothing connected to the interface, it's not going to give me any information. But to confirm that this command line works for this user, I'm going to run the command line anyways. Show MAC address table interface and the interface number. Yes, it also works. Okay, so all the command lines that I set up for this tech support user work. But there's one more, or there are two more that I would like this user to have, and I didn't add them originally for a specific purpose because I wanted to show you how to add more command lines to a specific user if you need to in the future. So I'm going to use the ping command, and I am going to ping the host computer. In this case is 192.168.40.80. And as you can see, the ping command is not recognized on this user. Alright, so I'm going to go back in here into the console connection since I am still logged in as the network admin. And to add a command line, all you gotta do is run this command line. This is for global config, like for example, ping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add commands exec include, and in this case the command line I want to allow this user to run, which is ping. I'm gonna hit enter, and now this user should be able to ping the host computer. Try again, ping the host computer, and there you go. Now this user is able to use the ping command. But as you can see, I'm still inside the configuration, the original configuration, when I added all the specific command lines for that one user. But what happened if, let's say for example, you're out of this setup and you want to add another command line just to that one switch? How would you do that? Well, you get into config mode, and this part right here is the one that you want to use. Parser view tech support, secret super tech. What this will do is it will specify where to add the next command line and what is the password for the user in that command line, which in this case is tech support. So I am in global config mode. I'm going to type those two command lines, which are parser view, the username in this case tech support, and this tech support should be using the password of the supertech, which is the same password we used when we created the user. And now I am inside the interface. It's going to give you this message, but it's fine. I mean, you're overriding it with the same password. And then you add the command line for the permissions you want to give this user. In this case, it's going to be traceroute. Hit enter. And just like that, now the user, the tech support user, can also run traceroute in the switch. And that is how you configure the tech support user. And as you can see, it's able to run only the command lines we allow this person to run on the switch. And now I'm going to create the lead tech profile in this switch. So let's go ahead and do that. To create the lead tech profile in the switch, I'm going to start by getting into config mode, and I'm going to use the same command line I used when I created the tech support user. But in this case, I'm going to change the tech support by lead tech. So the command line is user lead tech, the word view, and then the username again, which is the lead tech in this case, secret, and the password you want to assign to this user. Hit enter, and you can see where the lead tech user has been created in the switch. Next, we're going to create the parser view for this user. So I'm going to use the command lines, parser view, the username, which is tech lead in this case, and the secret is going to be the same password that you created when the user was created. So I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm inside the parser view for this lead tech. So I'm going to go ahead and paste the list of commands that I want to allow this user to be able to run while logged into the switch. And as you can see, it has a few more than the tech support user had. So I'm going to go over each one of those. So hit enter. After entering the last one, I'm going to exit out of this telnet session on the left, which is the tech support session. I'm going to telnet back into the switch, but this time I'm going to log in as lead tech and the password super user. And I'm in. Now let's try to see if I can run these command lines. The first one I included was ping. So let's see if I can ping the host name. Say ping 192.168.40.77. Yes, I can ping. I can do show interface status. And the big thing for this user versus the tech support is that I can actually make changes in the switch. So I'm going to try config T. I'm going to see if I can shut down one of the interfaces, which is one of the command lines that I specified in the command line list this user can run. So on config T, I'm going to get into interface 1. I'm going to shut down. And I got a message on the syslog saying yes, interface has been shut down. I'm going to turn it back on by issuing the command no shut. And I should be getting another message here in the console connection saying that the interface is now up. And yes, that is correct. One thing I want you to notice is that the interfaces I allow this user to be able to modify are 1, 2, and 3. If you look in the switch on the left hand side, you're going to see that it has 0, 1, 2, and 3. Interface 0 is not in the list of the interfaces the user can modify. The reason for it is because interface 0 is my connection to the WAN or to the internet. So if I allow the user to shut down, for example, interface eth0/0, it will kill the connection to the outside world, to the internet for this company. So I purposely leave that interface out. So if you want to test that and make sure this actually works, in config mode, I want to get into the interface eth0/0, enter. And as you can see, it's not letting me even get into the interface. If I try to get into the interface 1, I can. So as you can tell, this confirms that since I did not specify this interface to be allowed for this user to modify, it's not even recognizing the interface as a valid entry. That is one thing that you have to think about when you're given permissions and access. You have to think ahead and think of possible issues you may run into if you give too many permissions. And every other command line is fairly the same as the tech support. The only difference is the lead tech is able to configure interfaces in the switch. Alright, and that is it. That is it for the lead tech profile in the switch. Now, if you want to see what type of permissions you have given to each profile, you can try it with the command lines show running config section in parser view tech support. That is the one that is going to show the permissions tech support has. Hit enter there, and you're going to see it has show interface, show VLAN brief, and the command lines that we looked at when we were looking at what the tech support user could do. Now, if we do the same thing, but on the lead tech profile, you're going to see that it has a few more, including the configure option for the interfaces in the switch. And that's it. That's all there is for this video. Now you have seen how to create users locally in a switch, how you can assign specific commands for each user to run so you can protect your network from within. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.